As of today, 6 states have legalized gay marriage. Others plan to. Most liberals are happy about that. Most conservatives are not. Brian Brown of the National Organization for Marriage says gay marriage degrades marriage between a man and a woman. He won't convince the liberals, so the fight will continue unless libertarian David Harsenyi gets his way. He says he has a solution that could satisfy both sides. But before we get to your solution, Brian, how does gay marriage threaten, say, my marriage?
Well, marriage is a public good. When you redefine marriage, you redefine it for everyone. And in states and jurisdictions that have redefined marriage, we've seen serious consequences. Consequences ranging from what's taught in the schools. Kids in kindergarten, first grade in Massachusetts are taught that it's the same thing to grow up and marry a boy as to marry a girl, to what happens to religious organizations or organizations that just believe marriage is the union of a man and a woman. It's a serious consequence when you see Catholic Charities Adoption Agency essentially being forced out of being able to adopt kids because the state says it's discriminating by adopting children, same-sex couples.
That's an example of big government, the state overreaching again. But I still don't get the first part. If kids are taught in school that gay marriage is just fine, how does that hurt marriage, heterosexual marriage?
They're being told that their parents' views are essentially bigotry. There are two ideas on the table. The marriage idea, which has been shared by cultures very different than our own throughout human history, and is that marriage is the union of a man and a woman because men and women are unique and special and they need to be connected with any children they may bear.
All right, well, I just am not convinced this is a threat to marriage, but you'll never convince everybody on this. David, you say you have a way around the whole fight.
Well, my way would be unacceptable for both sides, I think. But the way around the problem, first of all, of children, I think, is just to privatize schools and send your kid where you want to so that you don't have to be taught things that you don't believe in. But more than that, I think that it is a mistake to allow government to define what marriage should be, gay or not. It should get out of the business of defining marriage at all and let people engage in... Very popular today in public. It's not a public good. It's a private relationship that people should engage in without government.
It doesn't need to be a government-sanctioned thing.
When you're getting married, you're not thinking, oh, wow, the government has endorsed this relationship. It's not very romantic. I don't think you are. And I don't see why that should exist.
Some people would say, well, there's all kinds of legal stuff that goes on around marriage. Alimony, hospital visitation rights, inheritance, adoption.
Within 5 minutes of my idea coming to fruition, a whole industry would be formed with prefabricated legal documents that would allow you to have the sort of relationship you want with the parameters you want legally. That allows for all those things. In other words, you work it out as a private contract. Some hospitals would say we allow same-sex couples, others would say no. Well, yeah, but more than that, I would say that my spouse is allowed to visit me in the hospital in a contract, and I'd show it to her. You can do that now if you want in sort of civil arrangements anyway.
Brian, you have a problem with this?
Oh, I definitely do. Again, marriage is a public good. The state's interest in marriage is that this is the institution by which we create stable families where kids can be connected. Any kids that are born can be connected to both their mother and their father. The state has an interest in babies.
They can be connected to their father and their father.
Well, every child has both a mother and a father somewhere. So what we've seen in states that have gone this direction, we see things like attempts to recognize 3 parents because there's a biological father and 2 mothers. So what we see is a total deconstruction of marriage.
So what?
Well, because deconstructing marriage is a very bad idea. The fact that we have a state in which we see these rising rates of divorce and unwed motherhood especially, we see that there's a direct correlation to tax, not because of gay marriage. If you look at any of the social indicators, you look at children raised without mothers and fathers in intact families, you see higher rates of incarceration, juvenile delinquency. This costs the state money.
All of that had started long before anyone brought up gay marriage, and I think there's been, and I believe marriage is important. That's why I think that if people have a strong bond and want to be in a relationship and raise children and do all the things that a married couple does, I don't see how that would undermine my marriage in any way. In fact, I don't think it has anything to do with my marriage.
Well, marriage is not a creation of the state. The state should support what is true and good and beautiful, and it's true and good and beautiful that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, that men and women are unique and special, that husbands and wives are unique and special, and the state should support that.
I don't want the state deciding what's good and beautiful, but David, this last question for you. If the state is left out of it, you might have people marrying their horse. I got a letter from a guy from Missouri showing me a picture of his horse wife.
Well, once a horse agrees to that sort of relationship, I would gladly accept.
But an animal can't consent.
No. So that is out. Only consenting adults and animals can be in marriage. And I think that very few people want to marry their sister or wherever else this argument goes. And people who are in that sort of relationship won't be stopped because you recognize them or not. It's almost irrelevant to the argument, or it is irrelevant to the argument.
Thank you, David Harsanyi and Brian Brown. When we return, a very smart economist explains why we should legalize blackmail. Really? Well, yeah, I think he has a point. Hope he does.